Random names, they've all been attacked and been defamed. It's people persecuted by the Canadian government, all for daring to stand up and voice their opinion. If you disagreed with vaccine mandates, well, sorry, you still got more court dates and a lot of lawyer fees to pay. Pastor Hildebrandt fined over 250 grand. Detective Helen Gruce punished for just trying to tell the truth. Frontline nurses like Kristen Angle attacked and smeared from every angle. Dr. Hodgkinson Phillips Shoemaker just did their job and got more haters. Jansen, Marco, and Van Herk, when your country betrays you, yeah, that hurts. Morin, Olenek, Carbert, and Lysak spent years in a remand jail. Years from their families that they won't get back. It's people persecuted by the Canadian government, all for daring to defy popular opinion. If you disagreed with vaccine mandates, well, sorry, you still got more court dates and a lot of lawyer fees to pay. Well, Pierre Poilievre talks about the carbon tax. Real patriots in this nation just keep getting fucked in the ass. Truckers beaten in the streets gleefully by the RCMP. We got receipts, scars and broken hearts, bruised ribs. If you're Chavez, no, it's not easy to watch CBC. Don't preach to me about democracy. You lie through your teeth. You don't speak for me. How can you even say this country's free when there's people persecuted by their own government? All 338 representatives, they don't say a word about what actually happened. They're all traitors if it's me you're asking. And the only thing stopping it from happening again is the bravery of the names I just mentioned.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ehsan Arjman. I'm hosting Chanteh podcast, a podcast that recently I started for so many reasons, mostly to speak up, to tell the truth, to go beyond the lines or read between the lines and contribute to my society. Today I'm hosting very special guest today, Honorable Maxime Bernier. It's a very important figure in terms of fighting for freedom, for Canadian sovereignty, to fight the leftist, corrupted, globalist agenda. Somebody I have a lot of respect for. He's going to join me around 4 p.m., 40 minutes from now. So stay with me. So one of the reasons as you may know, probably, I ran as a federal candidate in the last federal election in April, almost 6 months ago. And the reason I did, because I was just trying to find a path forward to contribute to Canada. I feel for Canada. Canada took me in almost 18 years ago. So I came here as a PhD student. I finished my bachelor and my master's back in Iran, my home country. And then I got admission. I was able to come to Canada to do my studies. Canada took me in. I got excellent education. I got excellent jobs in Canada. And that's why I care about Canada so much. A lot of privileges that probably they were deprived from me in my home country because I couldn't share those Islamic communist values with the government. And if you are not sharing those values, you get nowhere. That's what happens when ideology took over. Ideologies, regimes like Islamic Republic, they take over. There wouldn't be any opportunity for people like me. So you have to either stay and comply with this ideology, you act like one, or you have to leave. And that's a decision I made when I was around like 18 years ago. The reason I ran as a candidate for People's Party of Canada was I was politically homeless. I couldn't see any difference between major parties in Canada, NDP, Liberal, Conservative. They all the same. Like when it comes to critical moments or critical decisions, they take exactly same decisions. So I was really hopeless until I got to know Maxime Bernier. He's a really brave hero to me, somebody I look up to. And then I decided to join his party. Uh, did, uh, and then when I started looking into his policies and the party policies, everything made sense. Like one of the reasons was his policies against mass uncontrolled immigration. And I like to emphasize on that mass uncontrolled immigration, because one of the questions I always get, say, people ask me, dude, you got a very such, like you have a such thick accent. You are an immigrant. You are not born in Canada. Why do you care so much about immigration? And then always because of these propaganda, all this false information and disinformation, and trying to demonize People's Party of Canada, they call them racist. But when you actually spend some time and think and go through their policies, you realize they're not against immigration. They are against mass uncontrolled immigration. And I always tell them, so if you think it's really unfair to a Canadian who were born here, who is not experiencing the same level of experience they used to have back like a couple of decades ago, think about an immigrant, someone like me who came here as a student almost 18 years ago to be a student for like 2-3 years. My status was a student. I got a study permit for 2-3 years, and after 2-3 years, when I graduated, I started working. So I had to show that I'm able to contribute to my society, to the country, the great country that took me in. Now I had to prove to them that I'm able to contribute something to this beautiful country. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So bringing all these people without, and I'm sorry to tell that, adding any value to this country, and at the same time consuming this country's resources, is not fair to people, even like me, who came here and they went through all this immigration process. So I just said upfront, because that's always something that I wanted to talk about. But now my focus is Maxime Bernier. His policies is making a lot of sense. He was somebody who always upheld his values. He never caved in to this leftist mainstream propaganda. He went through a lot, but he always been a different voice than uniparty in Canada. So by uniparty, I mean conservative, liberal, NDP, Green combined. So I have a video clip. It's coming from People's Party of Canada. I'd like you guys to watch it, and you get to know Max a little bit more.
Over the past few months,
important to recognize that we're in a world right now where these discussions, this polarization, this fear of the other has become easy currency for politicians who do want to strike up uncertainty in people's hearts and lift those anxieties and try to get people to vote against things.
So Canada remains committed to the Paris Agreement, making major reductions to carbon emissions by 2030. The carbon tax, part of that overall effort.
What's becoming clear is that this government does not have a climate plan. Their plan has failed to reach a single solitary greenhouse gas emission target.
Now it's not the birth rate, but immigration driving up the population, with a record 1 million newcomers landing last year. and millions on the way in the years ahead.
World leaders, corporate giants, top academics, they're all coming together in Davos, Switzerland today.
Trust into our institutions and particularly trust in our capability to shape a better future.
Your gender is not dependent on what parts you were born with, but rather what you feel like in the moment. Where some public schools and libraries invite drag queens, some dress like torn demons, to read to young children.
After a couple of minutes of this debate tonight, I think people can clearly see why I didn't think you should deserve a platform.
For too long, Canadian politics has been hijacked by interest groups, cartels, lobbies, international organizations, corporate and union interests, and the interest of politicians and bureaucrats in Ottawa who are disconnected from ordinary citizens. We see it in the way the old parties try to attract voters and support, not by offering solutions that appeal to all Canadians, but by pandering to various groups and dividing Canadians into little tribes that can be bought with promises, privileges, and taxpayers' money. Nobody speaks for Canadians. Nobody speaks for the people.
The billboards have popped up along highways across Canada. Say no to mass immigration, vote People's Party. Launching his campaign from his Quebec riding today, Maxime defended the billboards.
We want fewer immigrants, a maximum of 150,000 a year. And, we're not for mass immigration. We are the only principled alternative. We are speaking the truth about the real issues that we have in this country. Immigration, taxation, that's important. And let's have these debates in this country, that's important. Canadians want that.
And now is the time! The greatest threat to our freedoms in our lifetimes arrived in the form of tyrannical lockdowns, mandates, and ostracization of normal Canadians by corrupt governments across the country. We were not deterred. For 2 years, we protested across the country and fought back. Even in the middle of the darkness, we held on to our hope and faith.
The largest human rights protest Canada has ever seen. The most inspiring act of civil disobedience I have ever experienced. After 2 years of government tyranny, of lockdowns and travel bans, of curfews and stay-at-home orders, of government pitting families and friends against each other, of propaganda and psychological manipulation, brave Canadian truckers started a movement that would wake up a nation and inspire the world. Starting from the west and then the east, they made their way to Ottawa. The line of trucks and cars grew as they passed through each city and province. Patriotic Canadians gathered on highway overpasses, waving flags and raising homemade signs. 13 months ago, they began to arrive in Ottawa. The career politicians that walked the halls of Parliament were reminded that these buildings, this country, belong to us. They were reminded that Canadians are not just serfs paying taxes to support their insane globalist projects. We are a proud people, not to be treated like cogs in some broken machine. Trudeau smeared the protesters as racist and misogynist. The fake news media painted it as an occupation. They claimed the citizens of downtown Ottawa were being terrorized and lied about protesters committing arson and other crimes. But I was there in person. I experienced it firsthand. And I can tell you, It was the most beautiful, peaceful, and patriotic event I have ever seen. After 2 years of misery and discrimination, of being separated from friends and family, there was a special sense of love and togetherness in the streets of Ottawa. People were proud to be Canadian again. But just as pride and patriotism was resurging in Canada, Justin Trudeau stumped it out like a campfire at the end of the night. Trudeau gave himself unprecedented powers meant to protect Canadians at times of war. He weaponized the financial system, shutting down fundraisers and freezing people's bank accounts without due process. Stormtroopers took to the streets, shooting journalists with tear gas and trampling people with horses. We were reminded the tyrants are still in control. Even though the Freedom Convoy was violently crushed, it was still a brilliant success. Public opinion had turned. Provincial government started to quietly drop mandates and restrictions. In the years since the convoy, the political establishment has done everything they can to sap the momentum out of this populist uprising. They've used every tool in their arsenal. The corporate media are still vilifying protesters and preventing the other side of the story from being told. The courts have delayed important cases or refused to hear them. Trudeau made a mockery of the inquiry, appointing a former Liberal staffer as commissioner. Many Canadians that had woken up have been lulled back to sleep. We must not forget about what the tyrannical Liberals did to us, what the NDP and the Bloc Québécois enabled, what the Conservatives failed to oppose. We must recapture the fervor and passion of the Freedom Convoy and start fighting now to make change in the next election.
Across Canada, this has been a day of protest, counter-protest, and even some confrontations over sex ed and LGBTQ rights.
To insinuate that we might actually be spending time indoctrinating them is absolutely ridiculous. You know, we don't have time for this. We just want our children to be, safe, loved, cared for, and if there is a situation where a child is in danger because of their sexuality or because of their gender identity, then it is our job under the Charter of Rights to keep them safe.
At the end of the day, we want to have a discussion. We want to establish a dialogue and say, listen, whatever is being taught to our kids, parents should have a right to know about that. It shouldn't take the strong arm of the government to have.
So, fight, 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 as President Trump mentioned. Freedom is not given. You've got to go for it. You've got to fight for it. And it looks like every patriotic person in the whole world right now, they're going through the same path. So first of all, they try to demonize you. They try to make fun of you. They try to ridicule you. They want to show, although you are very serious to them, they want to show how funny it is to correlate with patriotism. And then if they don't succeed, they will go after you with false accusation. Try to get you engaged with all these legal proceedings and all these fake accusation. And again, if they don't succeed again, they try to get rid of you. They try to eliminate you. And that's the sad reality. And at the same time, they call people, patriotic people like Max, patriotic people like Charlie Kirk, they call them far right. That's the funniest joke I've ever heard, like the last decade at least. Speaking of Charlie Kirk had an interview with Max before he joined in. I want to pay respect to him, and I'd like to share that interview with you guys as well. So stay with me. That's another night video clip. Max will be joining us at 4 p.m. PST or 7 p.m. East time. There you go.
And it needs to be fixed badly. So joining us now is Maxime Bernier, I think I said that correctly, People's Party of Canada.ca, The election is on April 28th. Welcome, sir. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I'm very pleased to be with you. That's a nice opportunity. Yes, I'm the leader of the People's Party of Canada. We are the populist, free market political party that is fighting to keep and preserve our country and our Western civilization values. That movement in Canada, the populist movement, is growing, and we are in the middle of an election right now here in Canada. The election day will be April 28th. Not next Monday, but the Monday after. So I want to thank you because we are like, other populist party in Europe, cancelled by the mainstream media. My goal is to speak about our platform and explain to Canadians that there's only way to save this country is to end the mass immigration. That's something that is happening in Canada. We have mass immigration, and we are the only political party at the national level that is ready to have a moratorium on immigration to preserve our country.
Yeah, so talk more about that. What is it about Canada that Canada currently seems at least united with the Liberal Party about having foreigners come and replace native Canadians? Explain to our viewers the scale of this mass migration.
Yes, actually, Canada, we are 40 million people here in Canada, and the growth of our population last year was 2.7%. And if you compare that with the growth of the population in Western countries, that was 0.5%. So the growth of our population was 5 times bigger than the average growth of the Western countries. And actually, if you look at the data, 97% of the growth of our population is coming from immigration. So that is the replacement theory in action. If you have that for a couple of years, that will be the end of our country. So that's important. And actually, 70% of Canadians are saying we must end mass immigration. But the two main political parties, the Conservative Party of Canada, they're fake conservative. And like in US, you have the Republican and the Rhino, Republican in name only. The Conservative Party of Canada is like that. They are conservative in name only. The Conservative and the Liberals, both of them are okay with mass immigration. So our position is to end that because it's destroying the social fabric of our country. And, we are immigrants coming from Asia and other countries who don't share our values. We are bringing people from third world countries. And when you're doing that, your country, Canada, will become a third world country. And that's happening right now.
It is. So I want to play a piece of tape here that is from you with Tucker Carlson. And let's go here to your discussion with, let's play cut 357. It's a nice segue.
And our position is, we won't have any impact on the politics in Middle East. That's you in the US who will have the greater impact there. So that's why I'm saying I don't want to speak about that. That's not our issue. And same thing for the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, I was the only leader saying, no, we must not participate in that war. But Poilievre and Trudeau at that time and now Carney, they are pro-war and they are pro, the war in Ukraine. And actually right now, President Trump is doing the right thing. Try to have a peace deal with Russia.
And talk a little bit about that, but also just more broadly, I mean, in Canada, there's TikTok videos about third worlders that show up to food banks in Canada and just take all the food, which is just third world behavior. Is there a grassroots movement in Canada that is rising up against this?
Yes, absolutely. It's happening, right now. I'm in Alberta and I'm in Edmonton. I did a rally yesterday. We had a lot of people. People are fed up. Canadians are very polite. But when we speak about immigration, what they don't like, it's for the mainstream political parties, it is not an issue. But you're right. These foreigners who are coming to our country are bringing with them their, conflicts, their internal conflicts in their country of origin on our streets. And people are fed up with that. We have more and more people that are saying, enough is enough. And actually, that's why I think that this election must be on immigration. But the mainstream parties are doing everything for the election to be against Trump, President Trump. Like I said in that segment, they are pro-wars. I'm the only one who's pro-peace and prosperity. Like, we were saying no to the war in Ukraine. Actually, the federal government spent $20 billion that they gave to Ukraine. That is, a corrupt government. And we have huge deficit here. We need to stop that. But you're right, it's coming, because when I started to speak about immigration in 2019, that was our first electoral campaign. We created the People's Party in 2018. So in 2019, I was saying we need to control our immigration. And the mainstream media were saying, oh, Bernier is a racist. He doesn't have the right to speak about that. But I was right at that time. The People's Party was right at that time. And now, we need to have that moratorium. And the mainstream media are not speaking about mass immigration because they don't want that to be an important discussion during that election. Shame on them.
Absolutely.
So talk about the conservative opposition. Pierre Poilievre, I'm sure I'm butchering that pronunciation. What is your thoughts on his candidacy?
Pierre Poilievre was a real conservative during the leadership contest when he wanted to be the leader of the Conservative Party. He was speaking like a conservative. But now Pierre Poilievre wants to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and he tries to please to everybody, and he's pandering to the left. So Poilievre right now, just for example, on immigration, he is for another 250,000 foreigners a year, every year, plus international students, plus temporary foreign workers, plus refugees. That will be about 1.5 million foreigners over 3 years for a country of 40 million people. So Poilievre is like the Liberals on that issue. Poilievre is like the Liberal also on climate change. We had a debate yesterday here in Canada on national TV, and Poilievre said that CO2 is a pollutant. We need to capture CO2. We need to be part of the Paris Accord and do everything to fight climate change. For Poilievre and Carney is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, we are in the middle of a climate crisis. We are not. We want to do like what President Trump did, withdraw from the Paris Accord, and we don't want to spend any money to try to change the climate. So on immigration, climate change, and on also, being a real fiscal conservative, for Poilievre and Carney, they're okay with huge deficit, and, they are telling Canadians that they won't balance the budget. Here in Canada, just for your viewers, Justin Trudeau, the former Liberal leader and our former Prime Minister, double our debt that we accumulated over 148 years. Over 148 years, we accumulated a debt in Canada of $600 billion. And Trudeau, in only 9 years, was able to double that to $1,200 billion. So big debts, big deficit, and now we are paying in Canada the inflation tax. We have inflation, and with that commercial war against the US that we won't win, we are imposing more taxes on Canadians. So on these issues, Poilievre and Carney are the same. They believe in big deficit, huge debt, and that's not the solution. We need to be fiscally responsible. We need to do like President Trump is doing in the US, being sure to control our expenses. And I said, we need to downsize the federal government, to have a smaller government in Ottawa, to give more freedom to Canadians and more autonomy to our provinces here in Canada.
1 minute remaining. What does polling show? Are you guys gaining momentum? And educate the audience on how short the window is in Canadian politics.
Yeah, we still have 10 days before the election, and that's going well. I can tell you we have a momentum. The mainstream media won't speak about that, and we may make history at this election. We may have our first candidate elected in parliament. As you know, it's a little bit more difficult because we are in a parliamentary system. It is first past the post. There's no proportionality in our electoral system. But that being said, we have a momentum. I believe that we'll be able to elect our first candidate and start that common sense revolution in Parliament after that election.
Very good. And finally, the website for people to support you. What is the website?
Yeah, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can read our platform. It's all about common sense and smarter government, fighting for Western civilization values. They can go on at the peoplespartyofcanada.ca. And
Very
for
good.
your Canadian audience, if they want to help us, they can donate also.
Very good. Have a great Good Friday. Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon. Best of luck.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
ReliefFactor.com. When you hear the term living better, what do you think about?
Truly, may his soul rest in peace. Charlie Kirk with Maxime Bernier before the election, 10 days before the election. That was the election that it was a very abrupt election, and for parties as new as PPC, so there was not a lot of preparation. PPC is not as rich as Canadian major parties like Liberal and Conservatives. But I can tell you from my own experience, from my door knocking, speaking with people in my riding, and that's my personal experience. When I spoke with them and I talked about PPC's policies, they all mostly agreed that every policy that People's Party of Canada is offering is making a lot of sense. And by far, those policies are beating conservative policies. But a lot of people, they were kind of had that feeling, so that we don't want to split the vote. We want to get rid of liberals. But conservatives failed. There was no victory for Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre showed his incompetency, and I want to be very blunt. I want to be very straightforward, though I'm not shying away from raising the fact that he's extremely incompetent. He's fake. He left his own core conservative values. He became another Justin Trudeau, with instead of wearing red, he was wearing blue. He did exactly what Justin Trudeau did in terms of campaigning. And then what he achieved was not only he lost his own supporters because people didn't see authenticity in Pierre Poilievre. Everything was fake about that guy. And at the same time, not only he received the leftist liberals NDP votes after he spent so much resources and so much time to attract those voters, he also lost his own real conservative supporters. So when I think about Pierre Poilievre, always something comes to my mind, like Margaret Thatcher said, don't stand in the middle of the road. You get hit by both sides of traffic. So that's important. Pierre Poilievre stood in the middle of the road. He didn't have real voice. And at the same time, we saw Trump on the other side of the border. And the contrast was so amazing. At the same time, we saw President Trump, a strong leader. And every time he had the genuine voice, he was ready to fight for his country. But Pierre Poilievre was like a robot, keeps saying the same thing regardless of what's going on. Trump was coming after Canada with the idea of 51st state. He was still talking about what Justin Trudeau did and all about those stuff that he kept talking about in the last 2 years. So Pierre Poilievre fell. That was the election that he was destined. Any normal leader would have won this election. This election showed that even in this election, he couldn't win his own seat. So I don't see any hope for conservative to come to life again. Just winning a couple more seats here and there, it's not a victory. After uh, having liberal government, and Canada's lost decade after Justin Trudeau failures. It was for any normal leader, any average leader, it would have been an easy win. But Pierre Poilievre lost, and that's something that uh, shows his qualification. That it shows that he's not up for this job. And I'm hoping this time around, the voice of people like Maxime Bernier is heard more. I hope the boycott is gone. I hope people like me do their part. As I said, I was an immigrant. Canada took me in. I was able to get the best education here. I was able to build a life in here. And then I have to give something back to this country. I cannot see this country going down and down and down every single year. There are a lot of bills that are being discussed in addition to those crazy bills during Justin Trudeau's time. And every person who cares about his society, the country he's living in, it just drives them crazy. So very soon, Maxim is going to join me, hopefully in right on time, in 5 minutes. And one thing that we want to talk about, what do we mean by uniparty? Like conservatives, and like in the United States, we see Republican, we see Democrats. They have very heated debates. They have two totally different policies about everything, about immigration, about economy. But in Canada, it's not like that. In the US, for example, you have CNN. At the same time, you have Fox News. But in Canada, it's not like that. Canada is not really something like United States. It's more like communist China. You have a media funded by government, billions of dollars, and only propagating government's narratives. And any other narratives that deviates from the mainstream narrative is boycotted. It's never discussed, and that's the base case scenario. In a lot of circumstances, those different point of views, those different narratives, they're always kind of trying to be demonized. And as I said, it's very similar to communist China and even Islamic Republic. I can see that. And by uniparty, I mean, there's no difference between conservative and liberal. I give you an example. Liberals, they say, oh, we want to get to the zero emission. And the only fight that conservatives, they do, why don't you do it faster and harder? So happy Max is here.
Hello.
Hi, Max. Good to see you.
How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining my podcast. It's my pleasure to have you, Max. Good to see you again.
I'm very pleased to be with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So Maxime Bernier, his pronouns is I told you so. And my name is Ehsan. My pronouns is Max was right about everything. So Max, before further ado, I want to talk about some of the. I know you don't have a lot of time, so I want to jump right in and ask you about one big question. So, what's this intentional national suicide of Canadians? Why they are doing national suicide about immigration, about climate change, about they do everything. This government, they do everything they could to destroy Canada. What is the bigger agenda here?
But the bigger agenda, it's all, transforming our society and trying to control a little bit more about what we are doing, we as Canadians. And as you said, they're doing that because they want to respect and being in line with the UN national agenda, the UN climate change agenda, the UN migration compact. And so these establishment politicians are very pleased to follow the UN. Like I said, the UN is not imposing anything on us. That's a dysfunctional and a globalist organization. But we here in Canada are adopting the philosophy and ideas coming from the UN by our own politicians. So that's why these politicians want to look very good with the UN, and so that's why we have now here in Canada, as you know, a climate change policy, and the try is to reduce the green gas and the CO2. And as you know, and I know, CO2 is a gas essential for life. It is not a pollutant, and the climate is always changing and will always change. So that's why our position at the People's Party is to do nothing there. We are spending billions of dollars just to fight climate change, and we are in a recession in Canada instead of helping Canadians. And
That's right.
And on immigration, like you said, it's the same. For me, I think it is immoral for a politician and a leader of a political party opening our borders like they're doing. For me, it's more important for them to take care of migrants than to take care of Canadians. And
That's
that's
true.
what they're doing with mass immigration. And we said, since the creation of the People's Party, that we must control the immigration. In the beginning, when we created the People's Party, we had a maximum of 150,000 migrants a year. And now, because of the mass immigration, our position is very clear. We need to stop that. We need to have a moratorium on immigration, and we need to start the deportation. But don't forget, there's about 65% of the population in the last survey who is saying enough is enough with mass immigration. And
That's right.
I'm always saying also that the conservatives and the liberals are doing politics by survey and by polling. They don't have any conviction. But you may think, Maxime, when you're saying that, knowing that 65% of the population is against mass immigration, how come they're not following that? How come they are okay with mass immigration and open borders? It's because, I just want to be clear about that,
Yeah.
they're doing survey and polling by ridings. So for the conservative and the liberals, they want to know which riding they can win. And there's a lot of riding in the big GTA in Ottawa, in Toronto, sorry. There's more ridings there than in Alberta. So for them, they will do polling in these ridings, and the migrants are there, and they don't want to stop mass immigration. So that's why for them it's not important what the global population is thinking. It's how many riding they can win with a
They
policy,
want bringing
and they will
voters.
run on that policy until they win.
So, Max, that's a very good point. Is that safe to say there is some flaws with this current democracy, as we call it? So this democracy is becoming a circle that
Yeah.
destroy, instead of like adding value, and instead of like bringing up good people, qualified people, it's kind of working the other way around. It's kind of creating, like, it's not working right now for some reason. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Our democracy right now, it is not what it's supposed to be. I'll give you an example. In the 18 centuries, people, they wanted to have a democratic government after having kings and aristocrat deciding everything in Europe. They were looking at the 18th and 17th century to have a limited government that would be based on elections and a real democracy. And so when they created that to have a limited government for more freedom for the people. But they feared at that time that it may become a tyranny of the majority. And I think it's worse than that today. We don't have a tyranny of a majority with our electoral system. We have a tyranny of on a big enough minority. And when the federal government is controlling that minority, they can do what they want. For example, if the federal government has a huge budget for communication. I call it the propaganda budget. They use that to manipulate the public opinion. And when they were able to manipulate the public opinion and have a strong enough minority, they will do what they want and they won't follow the Constitution. The best example of that was during the COVID-19 history. The the federal government decided to pay a lot of advertising, publicity, paying, YouTube influencer, and they were able to manipulate the public opinion using fear. And so when the public opinion was on board to have mandates, stay-at-home orders, they did that. So we don't have a real democracy right
And
now.
also
That's what I'm
coming
saying.
after their opponents, coming after fresh voices. That's they spend taxpayer money
Yeah.
to come after people like you. That's the craziest part of it that I don't get. And I feel like that's a betrayal of our democracy.
Yeah, so that's a big challenge with our democracy right now because of that. If a government is able to manipulate the public opinion and manufactured a strong minority, he will do what he wants, and the media won't do anything. Everything that they did during COVID was unconstitutional. We have a Charter of Rights, and the media didn't say anything because they were able to demonstrate that they have the people on their side. But that's for me, that's why we are not doing politics by polling. We try to inform and educate the population.
Exactly.
And now I don't know if you saw that recently, but with the bill C8.
I wanted to talk about it, Max. So basically, it comes hand by hand. So at the same time, government is paying a lot of money, billions of dollars, to these so-called legacy medias, basically to propagate their own narratives. But at the same time, they don't want any other voice to be heard. There is not only Bill 9, there is a Bill C9, BC11, BC18. It's just getting out of hand. And I think if it wasn't for Trump, if they were not in the middle of this trade talk with Trump, they would have imposed these bills more severely, like what we are seeing right now in United Kingdom. Talk about that. That's extremely important.
No, you're absolutely right about that. So what I was saying, we have a big challenge with our democracy right now because it's a tyranny of a strong enough minority, first. Second, we have a government in Ottawa that is to try to control what we are saying on social media. And if they don't like what we are saying, they are having now, and they will, after when these bills will be enforced, they will have the power to shut you down, to disconnect you from the internet, from the world, without any court appeal, without any reason. They don't need to give you any reason. That's all in these bills, Bill C9, C8. Same thing with the C9, that's the hate crimes. We don't need that bill. Now, if you have a bad emotion and you are saying something that your neighbors don't like, he will be able to complain and go to the police. That's what is happening in UK right now. People, because of what they're writing on Facebook and on Twitter, they can have the visit of the police if they're not polite enough, if they're expressing some point of view. That's going against our freedom of speech, our Western values, but that's happening in UK right now. And I've been told that there's about 15% every day in UK who have the visit of the police because of what they said on social media. For me, the role of the police must not be there. We have a lot of crimes in Canada and in UK. They must put their resources to solve that.
And let's be open. We have rape, like crazy numbers of rapes right now in the UK. So if you look at those numbers and their statistics, those numbers are crazy. While those legacy media, those government-funded media, they won't talk about it because it is against their globalist agenda. but at the same time, they're talking about that somebody like me said something on social media that they didn't like. That's crazy. It doesn't make sense. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and somehow try to be positive, justify it, but it's totally tyranny, Matt. Yeah, talk.
Yeah. But we have right now an authoritarian government in Ottawa that does not respect our constitutions, does not respect the division of powers in our constitution, interfere in provincial jurisdictions. That's why you have in Alberta the separatist movement right now that is gaining in popularity, and same thing in Quebec. This country is dysfunctional right now, and you have Poliev, the leader of the Conservative Party, who is not speaking about the real issues that we have in this country, like the imperial federalism. That's what we have. The federal government is telling provinces what to do or not to do, and is telling us what we can say or not to say on social media. Poliev is not speaking about the money that is going to the equalization payments, that it's unfair, and Western Canada are paying for Eastern Canada. We must stop that. Real decentralization that we need, a radical decentralization in line with our constitution. Poliev is not speaking about that.
No.
So for me, Poliev or Carney, they're the same.
So Poliev is a fake opposition. I'm as an Iranian Canadian, we are very familiar with fake opposition. They put a person that act like that they are siding with people who are not happy, but at the same time they follow the same agenda. Their goal is just to establish the same agenda. Is it true?
Absolutely. For example, at the last election, Poliev was saying, we will fix the budget. As you know, we have a huge deficit. At that time, it was $40 billion. Now the deficit is supposed to be around $80 billion. We cannot afford that. And the federal government is still giving money to Ukraine and other countries instead of helping Canadians and speaking for Canadians first. But Poliev during the campaign was saying, we need to fix the budget. But he was like Carney, because for him fixing the budget was to balance the budget in 4 years. For me, fixing the budget is to balance the budget in 1 year, and yes, cutting $40 billion right now to be able to lower taxes to Canadians the year after. But on the budget side, Poliev, that was the same proposal. On the climate change, that was the same. Both of them were against a carbon tax, but they are 100% in line with the UN target and fighting climate change like it is a big urgency that we have here in Canada. So on a lot of important issues, they're sharing the same point of view or the same policies. So that's why I'm saying it's a LibCon party, liberal conservative. And we at the People's Party, we are doing, as you know, politics differently, speaking about ideas with passion and conviction. And the more we speak, I believe, the more support we will have.
That's true. That's so true, Max. So, Max, when I was running, a lot of people, they knew our policies are much better than the conservatives. And I went door knocking. I went to have coffee with them. I spoke with them, and they all admitted that. But at the same time, their argument was, so our voting to you will split the vote to the conservatives. And sorry, I know you are great. We love Maxime Bernier, and they all loved you, but said, no, sorry, this time around we're gonna vote conservatives because we don't want to split the vote, and we want to just get rid of liberals. We're sick and tired of liberals. They have to go. But then we see what happened. Talk about that. What's your message to them, to those people?
But you have a point there, and actually, I must say that I experiences the same thing. I did rallies across the country during the last campaign, and I can tell you that I was in Alberta. I did a rally, and a guy after that did ask a question and said, Mr. Bernier, I like you. I like your ideas. I voted for you in 2019. I voted for you in 2021. Actually, I'm a founding member of the People's Party of Canada. But at this election, I won't support you. I need to get rid of the Liberals, and I will vote for Poilievre in my face after a rally. So, what was and what is my answer to that is, we have the best example right now. We lost, we the People's Party, about 700,000 votes. They went to the Conservative because of that argument about splitting the vote. So for them, they wanted to vote strategically. So now we have a proof that it is not working. You need to vote for what you believe to be able to have more chances to have what you want. And so these people didn't vote in line with their beliefs, they didn't vote in line with their ideas, so with their principles. And they still have the Trudeau government. And I believe at the next election for us, all these people, or some of them, or a lot of them, I don't know, they will, I hope, come back and say, okay, enough is enough. Let's vote for what we believe. But by doing that, that's not helping, that's not helping what they believe in. We cannot progress if you do that. So and about splitting the vote, what I was telling them is, if you split an apple, you'll have two pieces of an apple. But for us, if you look at the platform of the Conservative Party and our platform, it is very different. So you cannot split that. What Poilievre was saying, he was speaking, a little bit like us. But if you look at the policies, that was almost all the same with Carney. And I told them, I was a conservative. I was with Harper. And I told them, what is the legacy of Stephen Harper? Stephen Harper was coming from Western Canada. He was a conservative. And so what is his legacy? Nothing. Yet, Trudeau destroyed the legacy in 1 year. So they voted for Harper, and Harper was more generous towards Eastern Canada with the equalization payments. He increased that. Harper did big deficit. Harper did not solve the climate change crisis because he believed in that at that time and still today. So Harper did nothing for Western Canada. And Poilievre, I told them during the campaign, Poilievre will do the same. He's taking your vote for granted. His goal is to please Ontario and Quebec to be able to be in government. And after that, to be able to be reelected, he'll do the same. So I hope that all these people that you've met and that I've met during the campaign at the next election will realize, let's go back to our principle and will be more, our vote will be more influential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a very good point. Max. I want to have a little bit different question. So right now we are in the middle of the trade talk with the US. Canadians industry is not doing good. In fact, if I want to show a graph that how horrible things are working for us, like if you look at these graphs, and there are many of them right now, and then all of a sudden, Carney decides to support Ukrainian people or Palestinian people. They want to. It looks like Canadians, even they're not in like his top 5 priorities. Like now we need to side with winners. We need to come to some sort of consensus with President Trump. We need to take care of Canadian people here, and I see that like the quality of life of if I compare it like the same quality of life they had like 10 years ago, I can see a drastic decline in that. So what's up with them? What's up with this agenda? All of a sudden, Palestine, Ukraine, and then how about Canadians?
Yeah, what about us? What about Canadians, as you said? $22 billion to Ukraine. Imagine what we can do with $22 billion. We can build hospital. We can help Canadians. No, and we don't have that money because we are in a deficit. So same thing with Israel and Palestine. For me, we need to focus on our country first. I'm not pro Israel. I'm not pro Palestine. I'm pro Canada. I'm pro our people. And we that war in Ukraine, Ukraine or Russia are not our enemies. So why doing that war in Ukraine? It's not our war. We don't have to participate in that. But for Polyev and Carney, another big example that they share the same visions. But by doing that, what they're telling Canadians, they're telling, you're second class citizens, because the most important for us is foreigners, people in Ukraine, and we will help them and give them a lot of money. And we are in a recession right now in Canada. People are losing their jobs and they're paying a lot of taxes. And so we are sending money and spending money in projects that are not for us. We need to go back to help Canadians first. That's why I said that I don't know how many times during the campaign. We are the only national party that can save this country. When I'm speaking about save this country, it's going down the drain. You know it. Our standard of living is going down. The inflation is at the top. It's not 2%. Canadians understand that the real inflation is about 6 or 8%. You just have to do your grocery and you know it. We have that inflation. We are in a recession. They are losing our jobs. We have an open borders. And so we have fake students that are coming to our country and taking the jobs of Canadian students during the summer. And we have a lot of illegals right now in our country that we must deport. We are not doing that. So there's so many problems and to solve here in Canada, and they're not interested. The most important for the Liberals is to try to control the opposition and us, and try
media.
to silence us on social media. And they don't want to have a real debate because they know that they will lose the argument. We are winning the argument.
Yes, that's so true. So, Max, all of this situation going on, will you be surprised if people in Alberta, they want to have their own province? And because that's a crazy number. Every person in Alberta, they're paying 5,000 out of their pocket to the rest of Canada, mostly Quebec, east side. So, I mean, that's like a big probability. I mean, if they're being disappointed by federal government. They're stopping all their projects. They're stopping Canada's prosperities projects. Actually, I cannot blame them if they want to be an independent country.
No, you have a point there. And I was in Alberta 2 weeks ago and I delivered a speech about that. I said, what you need, it's a radical decentralization of the federal government, more autonomy for your province, but also more autonomy for every province. So that being said, because of the federal government, because of the conservative that are not speaking about the real issues that is important for Western Canadians and all Canadians, they're looking. And yes, if you look at the polls in Alberta right now, there's about 25% of the population who are saying, enough is enough. We want to have a referendum. And I believe that they will be able to have a referendum on the secession next year in early 2026. And I can tell you, the People's Party will be on their side, because if we need a constitutional crisis to have these two mainstream political parties to look at the real issues and have a real discussion, let's do it. So yes, we will support that. We believe in this country, but we know that we need to have real changes. And if nothing is happening, if Alberta is voting yes, they will have three options. The first one, yes, to be an independent country. The second one, maybe to go and be the 51st state. Or the third one, to have a new deal with Ottawa in line with our constitution. What I want them to be able to have these options, and I will promote the Canadian options if the federal government is there saying, okay, now we don't want to break this country. we need to sit at the same table and solve the problems, because if they're doing that with Alberta and respecting the Constitution and having a new deal in line with the Constitution, that will be good for Quebec, that will be good for Ontario, that will be good for every province. They
Yeah,
will
absolutely.
give more autonomy to provincial government. But yes, let's do that debate. And that's why, for me, for example, I voted personally for the yes in 1995, not because I was a separatist, because I wanted the government to respect our constitution and provincial autonomy. And after that, after all the promises, today, 30 years later, it is worse. The federal government is more interfering in provincial jurisdictions than ever, and Quebec is losing their autonomy, like Alberta, like other provinces. So let's have that real debate, and we'll be there to fight for our constitution, and at the end to fight to keep this country.
Yeah, I'm just showing economic growth of USA versus Canada. As I said, I don't blame them. We are not doing really good, and Albertans, they are losing in this kind of all these radical ideology policies that the federal government is using. So Max, so we talked about one thing I want to talk about right now is about President Trump. President Trump, and then I remember when he posted a picture that Canada becoming the 51st state, all these Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre started laughing. Oh, that's funny. He just made a joke. So hey, I mean, something that you didn't expect from a political leader. You want a political leader to take every national matters seriously, and then it come to the point that it gets more and more serious. Now it's becoming to reality when you look at all these numbers and figures. Like let's say if Alberta wants to have its own country, do you think like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they definitely will join in, and as probably Trump mentioned that West Canada and East Canada, there will be two separate new states for the US, and I want to talk about them. Like I remember when I start talking about it on my LinkedIn, like people attacked me left and right that what's going on with you, buy Canadian, all these fake patriotic games that this media are just propagating. Let's talk about that. That's extremely important, Max.
Oh, it is important. And you're right about that. What President Trump during the last election, what he did actually was, working for Americans when he said, I want tariff, I want the manufacturing sector to come back to the US. But we didn't do the same here in Canada. Carney or Poilievre, they wanted and they did it. They did impose tariff on us, and we are paying we are paying the goods that are coming from the US more expensive because of these tariffs. So they were not working on the interests of our country. That being said, right now what President Trump is doing with the war in Ukraine, I must say that I'm a little bit disappointed, because he said during the campaign that he can solve that in one day, and he was right. He just have to stop giving money to Ukraine, and that will stop. But we'll see what will happen there. But I don't like the fact that he's a pro-war, and he can push to have a real peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. But that being said, the good thing that he did when he started as a president is all the woke ideology. And, a man is a man, and no more, biological men won't be able to compete against biological women in sports. So that's good. All the woke nonsense, all the climate change hysteria, is not buying that, and that's great. Some part of his speech that he delivered at the UN was good, about all these countries that are spending money that they don't have, and they have huge deficit and huge debt, like the US actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
They must challenge that. They must be fiscally responsible. But I really enjoy what Trump did in the beginning of his mandate. against the doing that cultural war. And I really enjoy also what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing at the head of the
Absolutely.
CDC, real science. And so I hope that Canada will follow that, but I doubt. But our position is to fight for, ending the woke ideology in Canada, and also being sure that what happened to us during COVID-19 won't happen again. So we have a lot of work to do in our country, and to be more competitive.
So, Max, we have almost 1,000 people that are watching us live on X, and that's the biggest number I've ever hit so far. And thanks to you, I want to ask, I don't know how much time you have. I want to ask you a couple more questions if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
go ahead, go
So,
ahead.
what's very important? So, what can you define populism? Like populist, what does it mean to you? Can you explain that? Because it can, like, somebody, if you tell populist, it can be an insult or it can be something positive. What does it
Yeah.
mean that PPC is a populist party?
Yeah, we are a populist party who believe in the Canadians and in our country. But when you speak about populist political parties, there's two kinds of populist political parties. Populists from the left, you have all that in Europe, and you have populists from the right. And yes, we are from the right because we want a smaller government, more freedom. And when I'm saying that the People's Party, we are for, as you know, we have four principles: individual freedom and personal responsibility. So for us, the People's Party, it's all about the people. We believe in people, and that's why we are a populist political party. But also, we are trying also to be sure that we are following what the people wants, but at the same time we want to be sure that it's in line with the principles of the Western civilization values. That's why individual freedom, personal responsibility is very important for us. And we want a smaller government that will give to people more responsibility and more freedom, because when you are free you must be responsible of your actions.
Absolutely.
So now we have a big fat government in Ottawa, a nanny state that is telling you you can do that, you cannot do that. I don't want to manage your life, and that's why I believe that the majority of Canadians are ready for that revolution. But they don't know. A lot of them don't know that we exist because, as you know, the mainstream media is ignoring us like we don't exist, and the social media, they try to shadow ban us. So populism, it's working for the people, with ideas that are based on our constitution and our Western civilization values.
Okay. Okay. And I have one more question for you. A lot of people in Canada, they're waking up. People who used to be on center, who used to be liberals. So, what's the PPC plan to build this united movement? What's the plan to bring them under one banner, PPC banner? And what do you think? What's your message to candidates, like PPC candidates?
Yeah, first, I must say that I want to thank them, thank you and all the candidates who were running for us at the last election. That was a difficult election for us, I must admit that, because for me, that wasn't an election. That was a kind of a referendum on who will be the best to deal with President Trump, Carney or Polyev. It was all about that commercial war and tariffs, and we wanted to have a real discussion about the real issues. And one of the most important issue for Canadians is immigration. Like I said, 65% of Canadians are ready to have a pause on immigration. So, but we didn't have that national discussion on immigration. That did not help us as a political party. And also, we were not able to have a full slate of candidates. And in some ridings, people were not able to vote for us. We need to challenge that. We need to be sure that we'll be ready at the next election. So my message for everybody who love this country, we are fighting for you. And yes, if you look at our platform, and I want you to support the People's Party, but intelligently, go on our website, read our policies. We are the only national political party that is having our platform on our website. You know, we have 22 policies. You can read it. It's only 2 pages for each policy. That's what we believe in. We don't change our policies because of the electoral win. That's what we believe. And we have a strong vision for this country, putting at the center of our vision Canadians. And so that's why at every election we are speaking about the same issues. And until, you know, more people will understand. But I believe that we can unite everybody because that's what we want to do. We don't want to impose our values. We want to have a smaller government that will respect the differences between Quebec and Alberta. Because if you try to have one state in Canada, one big government that will tell everybody to do, the culture in Quebec is very different than the culture in Alberta. And it is not working right now because of that government that is interfering and telling Quebec and Alberta and other provinces what to do. So having that small government that will unite people, people will be happy to be Canadians. But for that, we need for them to be able to achieve their dreams. And they're not able right now with the taxes and the inflation and the deficit. We need to be serious about that. And that's the People's Party. So I know that we are in a very difficult time right now with the economy, the inflation, the cultural war. But we need to fight that war together. We need to be out there. And I'm telling people, if you believe in strong ideas, be out there, stand up and speak for what you believe. What is the goal? To have the best ideas if you keep them for yourself. You know, by doing that, you're gonna help yourself and you're gonna help the country. So I hope that more people will be able to have the courage of their conviction and stand up and speak out for what they believe. And the People's Party, with all our candidates across the country, we are doing that.
Absolutely. There is one more question came out. It's a very interesting one, Max. So define, what does it mean to be a Canadian? Like a lot of people like I speak to, they're like the second generation, third generation, they're right now confused about what does it mean to be a Canadian. They don't know who the neighbors are. So they don't know what cultures they have to.
Yeah, First, you must share the Western civilization values.
Mhm.
You must understand that everybody must be equal under the law. You know, not because you're black that you must have a privilege, or because you're coming from China that you must have another privilege. Everybody must be equal under the law.
No
You know,
DI.
yeah, no DI, and this country is not a racist country. We want to look at Canadians without looking at the color of their skin. We want to look at them as Canadians and values. So that's first, believe in Western civilization values. Second, you know, men and women are equal under the law, and so that's important. We have a Charter of Rights, but also if you're Canadians, I want you to be part of our culture, to be part of our society. If you're coming from another country, that's why we want to abolish the Multiculturalism Act, because, you know, we don't want the state, we don't want the federal government to promote your culture. We want the federal government to promote Canadian identity, to promote our history, to promote our culture. So being Canadians is living in a country when you have two big national culture, Francophone in Quebec and Anglophone outside Quebec. And the Francophone and Anglophone with the First Nation build this country. So I won't tell, because sometimes I'm hearing, you know, we are all immigrants. No, we are not all immigrants. I'm a settler. You know, I have roots in this country for more than 200 years. So people must understand that. So being a Canadian is being a people that is living in Canada, believing in our values, believing in Western civilization values,
And they built this country.
knowing our
They
history.
made it great. That's why it's very attractive to a lot of people, that they want to come to Canada. And it's such an amazing country.
Yeah, that's why they want to come. But if they're coming to our country, I don't want them to bring their internal conflicts in their country of origin, like it's happening in our street. When you decide to migrant to another country, to immigrate to another country. When you decide to do that, it's a tough decision for you. You're coming here, you know that you're leaving behind, your family, some part of your culture, and you're ready to adopt a new culture and to be part of a new society. That's what we want. But right now, the new immigrants are coming to keep their culture and having all these programs and money coming from the federal government. The old immigrants came here, the federal government did not give them anything, did not give them, dental care, did not give them, hotel rooms. No, they didn't.
Yeah, including
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. This country has been built with these people, but they were ready to work hard to have a better life here in Canada. And
Give
that's
back.
why, that's why it's
What do you feel, Max, when you see all these mass protests, Palestinian, all these crazy shows? What first thing comes to your mind?
Right, go back to your country. If you're fighting for that country, just go back there. Same thing for people coming from India. They want to have a celebration and all that. It's okay privately, but when you're doing that, if you want to be in India, just go back to India.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Max, I know we reached an agreement to you were free for 30 minutes, but thank you very much for spending 10 minutes more. It's always pleasure to speak with you.
And I hope that you'll be our candidate back when the next election will come.
That would be a pleasure, Max. That would be a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me. And so let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Max. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. So that was a great interview. Thanks everyone for watching. Almost 1,000 people. And yeah, thank you. Have a good one.